welcome back to Pinky Boo Hauntings. I'm your witchy host, Shy, and I'll be your guide to all things paranormal, weird, and spooky. And I know you know what time of the year it is. It's Halloween, baby! Happy Halloween, everybody! Are you guys excited? Are you going out trick-or-treating? Everybody deserves some free candy. Maybe you're partying the night away with some vampires, or maybe going to hang out with some of the ghosts. Whatever you're doing, be safe and have fun. This is the best time of the year, if you ask me. So, I'm always so happy when this time of year comes around. I am a witch after all. This is my season. So, be your best witchy selves and dance barefoot in the pale moonlight. It's a celebration after all. Ah, but until then, maybe stay a while and listen to my tales of old. Old Salem, that is. In today's episode, we're doing our first deep dive. And I think it's a little fitting that we're going to Salem. Well, okay, not the one you're thinking of, but Old Salem in North Carolina. It was once called Salem. Does that count? Don't know if it has any history with witches, though. At least I didn't see any in my research. If you are returning, you might remember this is the place I grew up going to for many, many field trips. But one thing I never knew was all of the ghosts haunting this historic place. Well, that's not totally true. I did know there were ghosts hanging around. I just didn't know others knew about them. Maybe I just didn't hear about it at the time. Or maybe they didn't embrace it like they do now. Either way, I was very surprised to find out just how haunted this place was. Which is saying a lot for a place like North Carolina. That state is very haunted. And for the most part, people there embrace it. Even if they only do so as fun ghost stories and don't believe in them. But whatever the reason, it was kind of nice to feel validated about what I felt all those years ago. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go check out episode 5, where I talk about some of my experiences during field trips. I very lazily named it The Ghost on My Field Trips. And yes, you should probably get used to badly titled episodes. I've never been good at titling anything. I'm sorry. Anyways, let's get on to this deep dive, shall we? We're going to start our haunted journey far into the past, back before it was the historic Old Salem in Winston-Salem. It was simply known as Salem. This town was first established all the way back in 1766 by the Moravian community. It was the place to go for all your trading needs, producing things like producing things like tools, ceramics, food, furniture, and metals. The Tradestown was part of a 100,000-acre colony, and at one point was meant to be the central town of the Wachovia tract. Though it was set up to be the central point of the colony, it was still your typical colonial town, full of simple wood and brick houses, and stone under your feet as you walk through the town. Horses and buggies could be seen going up and down the roads, and kids playing a game of hoop and stick. Even to this day, most of this hasn't changed in Old Salem, because in 1948 it was made into a historic district. They try to keep everything as it was, and the people who work there talk and dress as they did back then. They still use the same tools to make the trade Salem was so well known for in the colonial era. As with the food, one of their most popular foods, I feel, is the cookies. especially for a little kid on a long field trip. To this day, I can still taste those ginger cakes and sugar cookies. If you ever find yourself visiting, I swear you need to get some. Damn, I want some now. But with the history lesson out of the way, let's get on to what you're all here for. The ghost. I think I'll leave the most well known of them all for last, because he usually gets the most attention, at least compared to the other hauntings. I'm sure they talk about them in the ghost tours. Yes, they have ghost tours now, but unfortunately, I don't live in the state anymore, so I don't know what all they talk about. If you've been on one of those tours, can you please tell me what they talk about? I would love to know. All right, let's actually get on to the ghost stories now. So there are some I couldn't find too much information on, like the Green Man and the ghost of the Old Salem jail. I know I saw mention of these while doing my first round of research. It's why I put it in my notes so I could come back to it and learn more about them. And now I'm having a hard time finding anything on them. I can't even find a single site that talks about them now, at least in depth like I found before. Which is annoying because I wanted to talk about all of the haunted stories of this place, especially the lesser known ones. That was the point of this deep dive. But I guess my Googling game isn't as strong as I thought, because I did everything I could think of to find them. And yes, I know, I should have saved them, but I just forgot. I have 50 million tabs up at a time. Sometimes I don't think to bookmark. I'm sorry. It is kind of annoying, but what can I do? I ran out of time to find the info I wanted because I needed to get this episode done before Halloween. I sure didn't want to do another Reddit stories for the Halloween episode. I will give a little brief history of a few I could find a tiny bit of information on. I could at least do that much for you all. So, the first two that I really wanted to talk about were the tavern and the graveyard. Yes, of course, an old cemetery is haunted. You shouldn't be shocked. It's pretty normal for all of them to have a few spirits in them. But let's start with the tavern. The Salem Tavern can be found on the west side of South Main Street, and it was first constructed in 1771. Unfortunately, the first tavern burnt to the ground in 1784, but was quickly rebuilt into the Salem Tavern you can visit to this day. The reason for the fast turnaround after the fire was because this was an important staple in the community. They actually rebuilt it with bricks they had on hand for a different building. I mean, if you needed a turnaround fast, you're gonna have to get resourceful, I guess. Later, in 1815, the building was actually expanded with a wooden addition. And in 1832, a building connecting the two was constructed. There seemed to be a lot of reconstruction for this tavern because it also had a two-story porch that ran across the three buildings but has been removed. While doing this research, I was kind of confused by the whole layout of this place. The pictures of it all make it seem like a normal house from that time period, from the outside, anyways. I don't see how it ended up as three buildings fused into one. Like, if I didn't look into it, I don't think you could tell. But the guests and workers, while staying and working within this historic inn, have claimed to hear voices, footsteps, and cold spots. They seem to think it could be former travelers or innkeepers that have stayed in the tavern in the past, which, with how many people that have probably stayed and worked in this building, it is possible one of them decided to stay. Definitely a spirit that is either reliving their past or someone that is just enjoying the place. Now, let us travel past the town's Moravian church and north to the graveyard. This graveyard has many names, it seems. It's known as God's Ark Cemetery, Salem Moravian God's Ark, and Salem Moravian Graveyard. Why does it have so many names? I don't know. But it's definitely confusing. The first permanent resident of this land was buried all the way back in 1771. His name was John Burkhead. And the first girlie, Ava, and I'm going to absolutely butcher this, Birohin. Arian? Braven. No, we're going to go with Birohin. Ava Anna Birohin. She was laid to rest just 2 years after him. Now there are over 6,000 burials, as well as some spirits that still roam the area. Speaking of the undead occupants, they are usually roaming the area as shadowy figures or odd lights floating about. Not much is known about who they could be or why they stay. Maybe they're just having a family reunion, but it doesn't seem like they're bothering anybody, just walking about and hanging out. Besides these two, there are also a few other weird occurrences happening around Old Salem. There is the Lady in Grey. She seems to be the spirit of a young woman who died in the early 19th century, tragically. She's actually one of the spirits you can find in the graveyard. You might see her wandering around the graveyard or hear her weeping. Maybe she's mourning her own death. And the last one I couldn't find too much information on is the Potter's house. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not 100% sure if this one should count as part of Old Salem or not. It pops up when I'm doing my research, but when I went to go find more history about it, it says it's part of the historic Bethabara Park. I have never heard of this place, and when I went to look it up, it said it was its own settlement, now historic district within Winston-Salem. So I'm confused now. Whether it is in Old Salem or Bethabara Park, it definitely has its share of paranormal activity. People have heard footsteps walking through the house, and objects have been said to move on their own, especially the pottery, which I guess isn't that surprising since it's, of course, known for its pottery. Some even seem to think that a former potter might still be there, even the cause of all of these strange happenings. Maybe they're still there, making pottery, as they did so far in the past. Now, let's get on to the man of the hour, shall we? The most well known of them all is the Little Red Man. He's probably the one that gets talked about the most, which is why I could find the most information on him. They even have a segment on him in the local news. Definitely wasn't expecting to see the news report on this. His name was Andreas Crema. On March 7th, 1753, he was born in Pennsylvania, but had to seek refuge in North Carolina because he was part of the Moravian community. He actually moved to North Carolina in 1766 and settled in Salem not long after. Fremont ended up living in the single brother's house, starting at 16 years old. This was a home that the unmarried men of the town lived. I don't know if he chose to live there or if his family just kicked him out of the house because he didn't marry by like 13. All I know is that he lived there. If it wasn't obvious by his nickname, he was known for his small stature and was a bit of a prankster. It definitely got him in some trouble from time to time. When he wasn't pulling pranks on the townsfolk, he was working as a chimney sweep. This job was assigned to him because of his size. He was a short king after all, and this short king seemed to stay busy because he was also living his dream and was working as a shoemaker. That's not a sarcastic remark, by the way. He really did want to be a shoemaker. So, while his life was unfortunately short, at least he got to do something he truly loved in that time. How many of us could say that right now? On March 25th, 1786, tragedy fell upon the single brother's house. See, they were in the middle of construction on an addition to the house at the time, while he and some of the other brothers were digging out the cellar in the dead of night. He ignored the warnings to not dig on his knees. While digging deeper, suddenly the clay bank collapsed on top of him. Because he didn't listen to the warning, there was no way for him to escape, as the others did. His brothers hurried to dig him out and rescue him before the unthinkable could happen. Unfortunately, their efforts were not enough. At 2 a.m., not long after he was freed from the earth, Grima had succumbed to his injuries. After his death, the brothers could hear him continuing his passion. The tapping of a shoemaker's hammer echoed through the home, and a small figure dressed in red, matching Krima's description, could be seen around the home, letting the others know he was still around. Honestly, I'm surprised he didn't try to pull pranks from beyond the grave. Kind of a missed opportunity for a prankster. Or I guess he could have tried, but it didn't work, or the brothers didn't catch on. I don't know. I just think that being a ghost would be the perfect time to mess with people. Just so many options at your fingertips. Whatever he was doing, he was living his best life, it seems, and hung around the house for years after his passing. A young girl, while visiting her grandmother in the widow's home that replaced the single brother's house, said she saw a man beckon her with his finger. She had never heard of the tales from this home or of this man, and yet she was able to describe him to a T. I'm not gonna lie, when first reading that he was getting her attention with that gesture, I couldn't help seeing it in a creepy manner. I guess it could have been, but I just don't get the feeling he was that kind of person. At least I hope not. Living or dead, don't creep on kids. That's no good bad. One of the last times he was reportedly seen, a prominent member of the community was giving to some important visitors. They were down in the basement of the single brother's house when they saw a short man dressed in red appear out of nowhere. Maybe, why do I keep forgetting how to pronounce your name while I'm doing this? Ugh, Crema. It's Crema. I don't know if you were helping me out or not, but thank you. Maybe Crema was playing a prank on these people down there. Whatever the reason for his sudden appearance, he scared them enough to make them want to evict him. They got a minister to come, and I assume help guide him to pass over and put his soul to rest. After this minister's visit, they say Crema hasn't been seen or heard from since, though others report sightings of him still happening. Not gonna lie, I do believe he's still hanging around. Not because he's trapped. I feel like a lot of people weirdly believe that any spirit that dies, especially when they die tragically, are trapped in the place they died, but I get the feeling he loves Salem and is just coming around by choice. Honestly, I'm not fully sure he wasn't the spirit I felt all those years ago. I wish I could remember where we were in that tour when I felt that spirit. But seeing as he's been spotted in a basement, I wouldn't be shocked that it was him. Going into this, the little red man was the only one that seemed to keep popping up. I thought I wasn't going to be able to find much outside of Crema, but the more I went digging, the more beings I found living there. So I guess it could be just about anyone. Maybe one day I'll travel back to Old Salem and see if any memories are unlocked, or maybe even get to meet some of the spiritual residents that still reside within this historical town. I am for sure going to take a ghost tour when I do go back. And if you ever find yourself taking a walk into the past at Old Salem, whether you're returning or visiting for the first time, I hope these haunting tales add a little extra fun to your tour. Who knows? You might get to have an encounter with the Gray Lady or some of the other spooky neighbors walking through the graveyard. Or you could get to hang out with some of the past guests at the Salem Tavern. And while you're checking out the different trades that made the town what it was, take a visit to the Potter's house. You may get to see a worker from the past helping make a beautiful vase. You also might potentially get to see the most famous of them all. So, if you see a small figure in red in the single brother's house, you'll get to be one of the lucky ones to tell others you saw a celebrity, that you saw the little red man. But for now, the coven is adjourned. See you next time. Bye.